Hi, I'm Brian Buck. I'm a field agronomist in southeast Minnesota, and today I'm going to talk about alfalfa and winter hardiness and also persistence of stands. So a couple different areas to talk about, I think, when we get into this discussion. One thing I think first off would be genetics. Another piece of it would be management. And then that final piece is just how does weather affect both of those. So to get started, genetics, I think, is a big area to look at. When I start looking through the guide or I look at our varieties, one thing I always look at is how good is its winter hardiness score? Also, is the fall dormancy correct for the area? Those are two major factors to look at, but also you want a variety with very good overall disease resistance, because you think about that life of that whole stand and you go, you want a healthy stand throughout the entire life cycle, not just for a little while and then you have that disease that may come in and take over. So when I look at genetics, a good winter hardiness score, correct fall dormancy for the area, but also a good disease rating can be very beneficial also. The next piece in management, I look at first fertility. pH is a huge factor when it comes to managing alfalfa and making sure that stands as healthy as possible going into winter. So one big part of pH management is you want to make sure the pH is fixed a year before you seed down the alfalfa. That way it has time to neutralize the soil and get it to where we need and just overall maximize what that alfalfa can do on the soil. The next part is potassium, and there's three parts to potassium when I look at it. The first one would be, is it right before you seed down? So we want to make sure it hasn't got away from you leading up to seeding down that alfalfa, so good levels going into it. Also good maintenance applications throughout. So I look at alfalfa, it's a huge consumer of potassium, and it's something we got to keep up with throughout the stand. And then that last piece, I think that later season application of potassium before winter can really help with overall root reserves in that alfalfa and really help it handle the winter better. Another piece of management, when I think about it, especially up here in Minnesota, is it can get really cold in the winter, and the one thing that protects us from that cold is snow cover. And when we take that late cutting in the fall, maybe after we've had that first fall freeze, that takes off a lot of the alfalfa that may catch the snow and keep it in place to really insulate out from the cold. And another part of that fall cutting is if we take our last one at that in-between time, so maybe just a little bit too late, the alfalfa will start to regrow a little bit. It'll rob out the root reserves, but then it doesn't have time to replenish the root reserves before it goes dormant. So that last fall cutting, if possible, always don't take it unless you really need the feed. And then the last factor to consider, and it's something we can't really manage, is just the overall weather. So there are factors every winter that we can experience, whether it's ponding in an area that can decrease stand. We could have really wet conditions followed by a cold freeze that can cause some heaving. But I think the one thing we can help fight with winter is just leaving that stand in the fall to catch more snow and keep it insulated. But overall, we can't control the weather, and sometimes that can trump the best management. But overall, when I look back at it, biggest things are have good genetics, manage that pH a year before you seed down, manage potassium throughout, and then make sure that fall cutting isn't taken too late into the fall.